There are dates that heaven marks in red ink, and the 3rd of July, 2025 is one of them. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. Your spirit was drawn here because something ancient inside you recognizes the sound of truth, and what I'm about to reveal to you, they never wanted you to hear. This is not a coincidence that you're watching this right now. While the world sleeps through the greatest spiritual awakening in human history, you've been kept awake. You felt it, haven't you? That restless stirring in your chest, that sense that time is running out, that whisper in your spirit saying, something's coming. You've been marked, chosen one, and they know it. For months, dark forces have been working overtime to keep this message from reaching you. Videos deleted, channels shadow banned, messages blocked. But heaven has a way of breaking through every barrier when it's time for truth to be spoken. What if everything they told you about power was a lie? What if your years of feeling invisible, overlooked, spiritually attacked, what if all of that was actually preparation? What if every betrayal, every moment you stood alone, every night you cried out to God wondering, why me? What if it was all training for this moment? The 3rd of July, 2025 isn't just another date on the calendar. It's a divine checkpoint, a spiritual alarm clock set before time began. And chosen one, your alarm is about to go off. The enemy tried to silence you. They tried to convince you that you were ordinary, that your spiritual sensitivity was weakness, that your calling was just imagination. But here you are, still standing, still believing, still burning with holy fire. Before we go any further, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, if you feel led to plant a seed in faith, go ahead. But know that your heart, your attention, your very presence here is already a gift. What I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes will explain why you felt different your entire life, why you see things others miss, why you carry burdens others can't understand, why the darkness has targeted you so relentlessly. You weren't chosen for an easy life, beloved. You were chosen for an essential one. And what happened next made the darkness tremble. They thought heaven had abandoned you. They were wrong. You know that feeling, don't you? When the prayers you screamed into the darkness seemed to bounce off the ceiling and fall back down like broken glass. When you begged God to speak, to move, to do something, anything, and all you heard was silence. Deafening, suffocating silence that made you wonder if you were praying to empty air. The enemy whispered in that silence, "See, God doesn't care. You're on your own now. You're forgotten." And for a moment, maybe longer than a moment, you almost believed it. You watched the storms circle your life like vultures, picking at your peace, your hope, your very sanity. And where was heaven? Nowhere to be found. But chosen one, let me tell you what was really happening in that silence. God was never ignoring you. He was hiding you in plain sight, training you in secret. Every unanswered prayer wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every quiet moment when you felt abandoned wasn't emptiness, it was preparation. You thought you were being forgotten, but you were being forged. In the furnace of silence, heaven was shaping something the enemy never saw coming. See, the darkness made a fatal miscalculation. They assumed silence meant defeat. They thought if they could isolate you, break your connection to the divine, they could break you. But what they didn't understand is that God's greatest warriors are trained in the quiet places, in the spaces between the noise, in the sacred silence where only the truly chosen can hear the whisper that changes everything. You weren't being punished, you were being positioned. While hell was celebrating your silence, heaven was sharpening your sword. While the enemy thought they had you cornered, God was placing you exactly where you needed to be for this moment. The 3rd of July, 2025. The moment when the silence breaks and the truth explodes into the light. Every betrayal that happened while heaven seemed silent, that was your training in discernment. Every door that slammed shut while you prayed for an opening, that was divine protection from paths that would have destroyed you. Every night you cried alone while God seemed absent, that was Him teaching you to find strength in solitude, power in quiet confidence. The silence wasn't empty, beloved. It was pregnant with purpose. You didn't know it then, but you were being prepared for warfare, not the kind with swords and shields, but the kind where your very presence disrupts darkness, where your peace becomes a weapon, where your quiet confidence becomes a declaration of war against every lie the enemy ever told about you. They thought they were winning when you stopped talking, but God was teaching you the power of strategic silence. They thought they had you when you withdrew from the noise, but heaven was showing you how to move like thunder, felt before it's heard. And now, chosen one, the silence is breaking. The enemy is about to discover what heaven was building in the quiet. What you became when no one was watching. What kind of warrior emerges from the school of divine silence? You didn't just survive the quiet, you mastered it. And now, your silence has become their nightmare. They thought their whispers would follow you forever. They were wrong. The 3rd of July, 2025 wasn't just another day on the calendar, chosen one. It was the day heaven said, enough. The day every spiritual contract written against your name expired. Every curse spoken over your bloodline nullified. Every altar built to tear you down crumbled into dust. You felt it, didn't you? That strange lightness in your chest. That sudden silence where there used to be spiritual static. That peace that came out of nowhere, like someone had just turned off a noise machine you didn't even know was running. They had been working against you for years, in back rooms, in secret meetings, through people who smiled at your face but planted daggers in your spirit when you turned around. They thought they had the perfect plan, the perfect incantations, the perfect strategy to keep you small, keep you struggling, keep you questioning your own calling. But here's what they didn't understand about the chosen ones. When you stop fighting the darkness and start walking in the light, darkness has nowhere to hide. When you stop trying to convince people of your worth and start living from your worth, their opinions become irrelevant. When you stop defending yourself and start aligning yourself, that's when their weapons turn to dust in their hands. You didn't even fight back the way they expected, did you? They were prepared for anger. They were ready for retaliation. They had countermoves planned for every emotional reaction they thought you'd have, but you didn't give them what they were expecting. You simply aligned. You stopped feeding their chaos with your attention. You stopped watering their gossip with your tears. You stopped giving their manipulation the power it needed to survive. And without your energy to feed on, their whole system started to collapse. The spell didn't fail, beloved. The system behind it collapsed when you remembered who you are. They built their altars on the assumption that you would stay broken, that you would remain bitter, that you would keep playing their game by their rules. But chosen ones don't stay in the same spiritual frequency forever. You evolved. You ascended. You moved into a dimension where their weapons couldn't reach. Their altars fell in silence because you rose without shouting. Think about it. When was the last time their words actually stung the way they used to? When was the last time their rejection actually devastated you? When was the last time their approval actually mattered to you? Something shifted, didn't it? Something broke off. Something that used to have power over you just doesn't anymore. That wasn't coincidence. That was alignment doing what alignment does, making everything that's not of God irrelevant in your life. The 3rd of July marks the day you stopped being available for their spiritual manipulation. The day you stopped being a target for their emotional vampirism. The day you stepped into a level of divine protection that renders their attacks powerless. You didn't have to curse them back. You didn't have to expose them publicly. You didn't have to fight fire with fire. You did something far more devastating to the kingdom of darkness. You became untouchable through righteousness. You became unreachable through peace. You became unshakable through alignment. And when a chosen one becomes unshakable, every spell breaks, every curse reverses, every attack backfires. They're learning that now, aren't they? The very things they sent to destroy you are destroying them instead. The very words they spoke to tear you down are tearing down their own foundations. The very energy they used against you is now working for you. That's not revenge, chosen one. That's justice, divine justice. The kind that doesn't need your help to operate. The kind that works while you sleep, while you pray, while you simply exist in alignment. Their weapons didn't stop working because they got old. Their weapons stopped working because you got holy. They thought your silence meant surrender. They saw you bleeding and assumed you were broken. They watched you walk away without a fight and convinced themselves they had won. But what they didn't understand, chosen one, is that your pain was never permission for their cruelty. Your scars were not surrender flags. They were sacred ink, writing your authority into the unseen realm. You didn't survive by accident. Your wounds made heaven stand up and say, enough. They touched the wrong one when they touched you. See, there's something the enemy never calculated. When darkness attacks light, it doesn't extinguish it, it activates it. Every tear you cried in secret, every night you questioned God's plan, every moment you felt abandoned and alone. All of it was being recorded in the divine courtroom, not as evidence against you, but as evidence against them. Your pain was not proof of your weakness, it was proof of your assignment. The more they hurt you, the more heaven took notice. The deeper they cut, the stronger your anointing became. They thought they were destroying you, but they were actually forging you. Every betrayal was a hammer strike. Every abandonment was fire refining gold. Every moment of agony was God preparing you for something they could never touch, never steal, never destroy. You see, chosen one, there's a difference between those who break under pressure and those who break through it. You broke through, not because you were superhuman, but because you were supernaturally protected. Your pain activated something ancient in the heavenlies. Angels that had been waiting centuries for their assignment suddenly had marching orders. They mistook your tears for defeat, but heaven saw every drop and said, "This one belongs to me." They mistook your silence for acceptance, but your silence was the calm before the storm, the deep breath before the roar, the pause before divine justice began to move on your behalf. What broke you was not meant to destroy you, it was evidence of your assignment. The enemy doesn't waste time attacking nobodies. He attacks those who carry something precious, something powerful, something he desperately wants to stop. Your pain was his confession that you mattered more than you knew. You didn't fall. You rose. You didn't run. You stood. You didn't flinch. You smiled through tears that should have drowned you. And now, chosen one, as you sit here listening to these words, feeling the truth of them settle in your spirit like medicine in a wound, understand this: your season of being misunderstood is over. Your time of walking alone through valleys of shadow is finished. The divine courtroom has reached its verdict. They thought your pain gave them permission to treat you as less than, but your pain was actually your promotion papers being written in real time. Every scar became a stripe of honor. Every wound became a window of wisdom. Every moment of agony became an appointment with authority. Your pain was never about what they did to you. It was about what God was doing through you. And what happened next made the darkness tremble. They thought silence made them innocent. Heaven kept a different ledger. You see, chosen one, there's a special place in the divine courtroom for those who watched. Not for your enemies, we'll deal with them later. This is about the watchers. The ones who saw everything and said nothing. The ones who witnessed your character assassination and chose comfort over courage. The ones who heard the lies and let them echo. They didn't have to stab you watching and saying nothing was enough to indict them. You remember their faces, don't you? Standing in doorways, sitting in meetings, present at family gatherings. They saw the injustice. They heard the whispered lies. They watched you bleed from wounds that words can make. And they chose neutrality. They chose safety. They chose to preserve their own peace while yours was being shredded. But neutrality is not innocent, it's participation by silence. The 3rd of July, 2025 isn't just about your vindication, beloved. It's about the great revealing. The moment when God opens the files on every spectator who thought their silence went unnoticed. Every conversation they had behind closed doors. Every time they could have spoken up and didn't. Every moment they chose their reputation over your reality. Heaven heard what they said behind closed doors, and now the court is in session. You know what hurts the most about watchers? It's not their silence, it's their selective blindness. They could see your flaws with microscopic precision, but somehow missed the obvious cruelty being inflicted upon you. They could count every mistake you made, but lost their voice when it was time to acknowledge your pain. They had opinions about everything except the one thing that mattered: the truth. But God was watching the watchers. While they thought they were playing it safe, staying neutral, keeping their hands clean, the Almighty was taking notes. Divine surveillance doesn't miss the subtle nods of approval when you were being torn down. It doesn't overlook the quiet satisfaction when you were excluded. It catches every smirk, every eye roll, every moment they enjoyed your downfall from the safety of their silence. The watchers thought they were exempt from judgment because they weren't the ones throwing the stones. But silence in the face of injustice is its own kind of violence. Standing by while someone drowns is its own form of murder. Watching evil and calling it peace is its own brand of evil. They're about to learn that there are no innocent bystanders in the kingdom of God. The 3rd of July marks the day when their neutrality expires, when their excuses crumble, when their safety net of silence gets pulled away. Because you see, chosen one, when God vindicates his chosen, He doesn't just expose the attackers, he exposes the entire ecosystem that allowed the attack to happen. The Watchers are being called to account, not just for what they did, but for what they failed to do, not just for their words, but for their silence, not just for their actions, but for their inaction. And the beautiful, terrible truth is this: they know. Deep in their spirits, they know. That's why some of them can't look you in the eye anymore. That's why others have become strangely distant. That's why a few have started reaching out with awkward apologies. The divine audit has begun, and their spiritual receipts are being examined. You didn't need them to fight your battles, chosen one. But heaven expected them to at least acknowledge the war was happening. Instead, they treated your crucifixion like entertainment and your resurrection like an inconvenience. But God keeps perfect records, and the 3rd of July is collection day. They trained you to keep quiet, but your silence became thunder. For generations, your bloodline carried the same script, the same dysfunction wrapped in tradition, the same wounds passed down like heirlooms nobody wanted but everyone inherited. They called it family loyalty. They called it respect. They called it love. But you called it what it was: a lie. You weren't born to fit the pattern, chosen one. You were born to break it. They expected you to carry the torch of generational trauma, to smile through the dysfunction, to keep the family secrets buried in the backyard of your soul. They needed you to play your role, the silent one, the accommodating one, the one who bends but never breaks the system. But something ancient inside you refused to cooperate. You became the interruption they never saw coming. While others learned to survive within the dysfunction, you questioned why it existed at all. While they adapted to the poison, you refused to drink it. While they protected the very patterns that were killing them, you stood up and said, "This ends with me." And that's when the real war began. They didn't just want your compliance, they needed it. Because your freedom threatened their prison, your healing exposed their wounds, your voice shattered their silence. You weren't just walking away from toxic dynamics, you were dismantling the entire machine. You became the glitch in the enemy's bloodline matrix. Every family has one. The one who won't play along, the one who asks uncomfortable questions, the one who refuses to carry forward what was never theirs to begin with, the one who looks at generational curses and says, "Not on my watch." That's you, beloved. You're the pattern breaker. They called you rebellious when you set boundaries. They called you selfish when you chose healing over harmony. They called you ungrateful when you refused to thank them for the very chains they tried to lock around your spirit. But heaven called you something else entirely. Heaven called you chosen. You didn't just survive the pattern, you shattered the blueprint. The enemy had mapped out your bloodline for centuries. Addiction here, dysfunction there, silence everywhere. Generation after generation walking the same painful path, never questioning why the road never led anywhere but back to the same dead end. But then you showed up, and you took one look at that road and said, "I'm cutting through the wilderness instead." Your courage didn't just change your trajectory, it changed the trajectory of every generation that comes after you. The children who will never know the weight you carried. The grandchildren who will never inherit the dysfunction you refused to pass down. The bloodline that will run clean because you had the audacity to believe it could. They thought your sensitivity was weakness. They thought your questions were disrespect. They thought your healing was betrayal. But God called it breakthrough. God called it deliverance. God called it divine interruption. You weren't just born into that family, chosen one. You were sent there, sent as heaven's secret weapon against everything that had held that bloodline in spiritual captivity. You were the answer to prayers your ancestors prayed but never lived to see answered. Your silence became thunder. Your leaving became liberation. Your healing became the earthquake that shook loose every chain that was never meant to bind you. And now you stand not perfect, not unscathed, but free. Free to write a new story. Free to establish new patterns. Free to be the ancestor your descendants will thank God for. You became the interruption that saved them all. They thought the flames would consume you. Instead, you became the light. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That season when everything fell apart at once, when the people you trusted turned their backs, when the doors you thought were yours slammed shut, when the ground beneath your feet cracked open and you found yourself falling into darkness so thick you couldn't see your own hands. But here's what they didn't tell you. Here's what the enemy hoped you'd never discover. That fire wasn't sent to destroy you. It was sent to reveal you. Every betrayal that cut like a knife, every delay that felt like punishment, every heartbreak that left you gasping for air, none of it was random, none of it was meaningless. It was all orchestrated by heaven's design to burn away everything that was never meant to be part of your story. The fire came for your illusions first. It burned through the lies you believed about who your friends really were. It incinerated the fantasy that comfort was your calling. It reduced to ash every false identity you'd wrapped around yourself like a security blanket. You lost people, didn't you? People you thought would walk with you to the end. Family members who couldn't handle your light. Friends who were only there for your pain, not your power. And you cried. Oh, how you cried. You mourned those losses like deaths, because that's exactly what they were. But chosen one, listen to me. What the fire took was never yours to begin with. What's left standing in the aftermath, that's eternal, that's unshakable, that's the real you. You see, the storm didn't come to drown you. It came to baptize you. Every wave that crashed over your head was washing away another layer of who you thought you had to be. Every gust of wind that knocked you down was blowing away the dust of other people's expectations. They watched you burn and waited for you to break. They gathered around expecting to see you crumble, to hear you cry, uncle, to watch you wave the white flag of surrender. But something happened in that fire that they never anticipated. You didn't break. You broke through. The heat that was meant to weaken you actually forged you into something harder than steel. The pressure that was designed to crush you compressed you into a diamond. The darkness that was supposed to blind you taught you how to see in the spirit. And now look at you. Look how you carry yourself different now. Look how your voice has changed. Look how your eyes hold depths they never held before. The fire didn't diminish you. It concentrated you. It distilled you down to your purest essence. That's why you shine different now, beloved. That's why people feel something when they're around you that they can't quite name. You're not carrying the same frequency you used to carry. The fire burned out all the static. Now when you speak, heaven speaks. When you move, purpose moves. When you love, eternity loves. The refining wasn't pretty. Purification never is. But it was necessary, because the world needs the version of you that could only emerge from the flames. The comforted version of you could never have carried what you're about to carry. The untested version could never have stood where you're about to stand. What the fire took was never yours. What's left is eternal. And what's eternal, that can never be shaken again. They spent decades trying to decode you, and here's what they missed. You weren't the message. You were the messenger. The 3rd of July, 2025, isn't just another date circled on heaven's calendar. It's a mirror, chosen one. And what you're about to see reflected back will take your breath away, because today, the veil lifts. Today, you discover what they never wanted you to know. You didn't stumble into this calling by accident. You didn't randomly develop spiritual sensitivity. You didn't just happen to see through their lies. You were planted, strategically, divinely, intentionally. Listen to me carefully. Before you took your first breath, before your mother even knew she was carrying you, heaven had already assigned your frequency. You weren't born to find the way, beloved. You were born to be the way. You don't echo what's holy. You transmit it. Think about it. Why do you think they targeted you so relentlessly? Why do you think every room you walk into either lights up or grows uncomfortable? Why do you think people either gravitate toward you or instinctively pull back? It's not your personality. It's not your education. It's not your charm. It's your signal. You carry a frequency that disrupts darkness just by existing. You don't have to preach. You don't have to perform. You don't have to prove anything. Your very presence is a living, breathing disruption to everything built on lies. That's why they tried so hard to silence you. That's why they worked overtime to convince you that you were ordinary. Because if you ever figured out what you really are, the game over. You were the spiritual signal sent into your bloodline, the pattern breaker, the generational curse destroyer, the one who would finally say enough to the dysfunction that had plagued your family for decades. You weren't born into chaos by mistake. You were strategically positioned there to end it. You were the signal sent into your neighborhood, your workplace, your church, the alarm clock wrapped in human skin, the wake-up call disguised as a person. Every time someone met you and walked away feeling different, that wasn't coincidence. That was assignment. You were the signal sent into your generation, the living reminder that there's another way to live, another way to love, another way to lead. While everyone else was following the crowd, you were broadcasting a different frequency entirely, the frequency of truth, the frequency of authenticity, the frequency of unshakable faith. They told you that you were too sensitive. What they meant was, your spiritual radar was too accurate. They told you that you were too intense. What they meant was, your frequency was too pure for their comfort. They told you that you needed to tone it down. What they meant was, your signal was exposing their static. The 3rd of July, 2025, is the day you stop apologizing for being a disruptor. Stop dimming your signal to make others comfortable. Stop questioning whether you're really called, really chosen, really anointed. You are the signal, chosen one. You don't tune into heaven's frequency, you broadcast it. You don't receive the transmission, you are the transmission. And today, the static stops. Today, you turn up the volume. Today, you let your signal reach every corner of darkness that thought it could hide. The enemy spent years trying to jam your frequency, but heaven's signal can't be blocked. It can only be delayed. And your time has come. The courtroom of heaven has been in session. And the verdict just came down. You felt it, didn't you? That shift in the atmosphere on the 3rd of July. That moment when everything changed. Not around you, within you. Something ancient and eternal moved into position behind you, not beside you, behind you. The throne didn't just speak for you, beloved. It moved behind you. For decades, they put you on trial. In their living rooms, their coffee shops, their hushed conversations after church. They questioned your calling. They dissected your character. They built a case against your worth, your purpose, your very right to exist in their space. And you stood there, taking it, absorbing every blow, every whispered accusation, every rolled eye, every dismissive laugh. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that a higher court was watching. Heaven's supreme judge was taking notes, recording evidence, building a case not against you, but for you. The gavel has dropped. The verdict is in, and it's not just vindication, chosen one, it's enthronement. You were not just vindicated, you were enthroned. They thought they were your judges. They thought their opinions mattered. They thought their rejection could define your destiny, but all this time, they were merely witnesses to your coronation. Every attack was another jewel being placed in your crown. Every betrayal was another degree of authority being transferred to your name. The throne didn't move to defend you. It moved to position itself behind you. Do you understand what that means? When the throne of heaven stands behind someone, it's not just support. It's backing, divine backing, unshakable authority, sacred power that cannot be questioned, cannot be appealed, cannot be overturned. Every lie they told about you, overruled. Every door they tried to close, reopened by divine decree. Every label they placed on you, torn off by heavenly hands and replaced with titles they could never comprehend. You're not the same person who walked into this battle, beloved. You're not even the same person who walked through it. You are the person who emerged from it with the full weight of heaven's throne supporting every step you take. When you speak now, it carries weight they can't explain. When you enter a room, the atmosphere shifts in ways that make them uncomfortable. When you make decisions, doors open that were never supposed to open for someone like you. That's not coincidence. That's coronation. The throne has moved behind you. And when heaven backs you, earthly lies don't just crumble. They evaporate. They called you too sensitive. Heaven calls you prophetic. They said you were too much. Heaven says you're exactly enough. They whispered you were broken. Heaven declares you are chosen. You didn't win this battle through strategy or manipulation or playing their games. You won it by outlasting their lies with heaven's truth. You won it by standing when they expected you to fall. You won it by staying faithful when they proved faithless. The throne has spoken. Not with words, but with position. Not with promises, but with power. It has moved behind you, and now every step you take forward is backed by the full authority of the one who sits upon it. This is not just your victory, chosen one. This is your coronation, and the crown they tried to steal, it was never theirs to give or take. The throne has moved behind you, and what heaven backs, earth cannot break. Beloved, before we close, let me remind you of the sacred truths we've uncovered together today. The 3rd of July, 2025 wasn't just another date on your calendar. It was the moment heaven's courtroom reached its final verdict in your favor. You are not who they said you were. You are not defined by their rejection, their whispers, or their limited understanding of your calling. The throne of the Most High has moved behind you, and when God backs you, no earthly opinion can stand against you. Remember this, every attack you survived was preparing you for this moment of divine backing. Every sleepless night you cried out to God was heard and recorded. Every time you felt alone, abandoned, misunderstood, heaven was taking notes, building your case, preparing your vindication. You were not just defended, chosen one. You were enthroned. And here's what I need you to understand with every fiber of your being. You are not walking this path alone. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. The same God who moved heaven's throne behind you is still working in your life right now, even in ways you cannot see. And you have a community here, thousands of faithful hearts who understand your journey because they've walked it too. But let me ask you this, now that you know the throne stands behind you, how will you walk differently? How will you speak differently? How will you carry yourself, knowing that heaven's full authority backs every step you take? Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul watching this message today. Lord, they have walked through fire and emerged as gold. They have stood when others fell. They have remained faithful when others proved faithless. And now, Father, let them feel your throne moved behind them. Bless them with supernatural peace that surpasses all understanding. Open doors that no man can shut. Give them favor in places where they were once rejected. Let their enemies become their footstools, not through vengeance, but through your divine justice. Heal their wounded hearts, Lord. Restore their confidence. Remind them daily that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen before the foundation of the world. Let them walk in the authority you've given them, not with pride, but with humble power. Provide for their every need according to your riches in glory. Surround them with genuine relationships that honor their calling. And Father, let their lives become a testimony that encourages others who feel forgotten, overlooked, or under attack. We seal this prayer in the mighty name of Jesus, knowing that what you have blessed, no weapon formed against it shall prosper. Let it be so. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has touched your heart. Tell us about a moment when you felt God's throne moving behind you. Ask your questions. This community is here to support you, to pray with you, to remind you that you are never alone in your calling. And if this message has blessed you, please share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. There's someone in your life right now who feels defeated, overlooked, or under attack. They need to know that heaven's courtroom is still in session and that vindication is coming. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Your faithfulness to listen, to receive, to believe, it matters more than you know. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We are building a community of the chosen, the called, the ones who refuse to give up even when the world gives up on them. Remember, the throne hasn't just spoken for you, it has moved behind you, and what heaven backs, earth cannot break. Until we meet again, walk in the authority that has been placed upon your life. You are loved, you are chosen, you are backed by the throne of heaven itself. God bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you. The best is yet to come.